Well, hey, folks, my name is Jason, and I had the pleasure of sharing the message this week regarding marriage in this series that we're doing called Always. And one of the things I touched on this week was the power of the gospel. And the gospel is a very churchy word, I understand, but it's really important, not just for our salvation, but also for our life. And gospel simply means the good news of Jesus. And there are many ways to express the gospel. You know, one way I think of it is like a story in 4 acts. And so we have the creation, where God made all things good. We had the crash, when humanity fell and sin bled into the story. We have Christ, our Redeemer, who came to save and rescue us. He's the hero of the story. And then now we have a calling, you and I, the church, the people of God, to love God with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength, and our neighbors as ourselves, and go and make disciples who do the same. So that is a very quick rundown of what the gospel is. Now, what we'll often hear about the gospel is with regards to our salvation, that we put our faith and hope in Jesus and the power of the gospel, and that way we can live forever. It's wonderful. It is powerful. It is amazing. But I think as Christians, those of us who've placed our faith in Jesus, is we forget the power of the gospel in everyday life, including our relationships and especially our marriage. So one thing I thought about, and I kind of brought up in the message, but I thought I'd just reinforce here, is how do we apply the gospel to our marriage? And I think a lot of it is going back to what the gospel is, that God created marriage good. And so your marriage, your relationship, if you remember when you first met, you loved each other, it was good. And hopefully it still is. But if not, there was something there at one time. But sin bleeds into our story. You and I are flawed human beings. I'm flawed, so are you. Thankfully, God is working in us, but we still are jacked up, make mistakes, and we see that with marriages as well. And so what do we do? What brings us together? Well, what brings us together is our love for Christ and his love for us. And Romans 5:8, I think, is really powerful because it kind of gets to the heart of what Jesus did for us. Romans 5:8, there it is. But God shows his love for us in this, that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. So when we're doing life together and we let the other person down, or we say something we shouldn't have, drop the ball, whatever the case may be, marriage requires everyday forgiveness. Not because you and I deserve it, but because we love them. Just as Christ loved the church, he died for us even while we're still sinners. It means hopefully my wife loves me even though I'm still a sinner, and likewise. And I think that's very, very powerful, because the act of everyday forgiveness when you live with somebody is so important. That means overlooking small things. That means communicating and being open and honest. But it also means sacrifice. You know, sometimes we get kind of selfish in our relationships, and so sacrifice, as Jesus sacrificed for us, so we sacrifice for one another. And I know guys who are willing to lay down their lives for their wives, but they may not be willing to take out the trash. So even the little sacrifices are as important as the big sacrifices, because that's our calling. Our calling is to bring good news and be good news to the people around us and the world around us, starting at home. So that's my encouragement for us today. Bring the power of the gospel into your marriage. It is the way back. When you don't know where else to be, when you don't know what else to do, go back to the gospel and say, what does this teach me? And what does this teach you about how we do life together? And so I think that is how we have everlasting love that lasts for always. Thanks for joining me in this Going Deeper moment. Take care. Blessings to you all. Bye-bye.